Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're now watching Q News. I'm Henny Saif, and today we look back at the pivotal moments that shaped 2024. In just 3 months, Q News has earned your trust by providing accurate reporting and incisive analysis on global and regional affairs. This year has brought profound changes, from geopolitical upheavals to critical developments across the Middle East. Stay tuned as we revisit the year's most significant stories, explore their repercussions, and discuss what lies ahead. But before we start our 2024 recap, we begin today with the top stories with our colleague Rana Al-Assas. Rana.
Thank you very much, Henny Saif. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with our top stories for this hour. Several violent explosions have rocked Yemen's capital Sana'a, targeting military sites. The 1st Armored Division camp and the Ministry of Defense building were struck. Houthi-affiliated media reported at least 4 explosions. Meanwhile, Israeli Broadcasting Authority, citing security sources, stated the attack was not Israeli. The situation highlights escalating tensions in Sana'a, with critical military infrastructure directly impacted by the strikes. Syria's Military Operations Administration has announced a curfew in Homs during a campaign to apprehend wanted individuals. The administration urged citizens to safeguard state property and avoid public institutions, which remain under the Prime Minister's supervision until the formal handover. Additionally, Mirhef Abu Qasra was appointed as the Syrian Defense Minister in the interim government. The United States Embassy in Damascus has announced that American officials met with Syria's interim authorities, where discussions emphasized preventing Iran's re-emergence in Syria. Discussions also included ensuring inclusive representation and advancing a comprehensive political process. Additionally, embassy representatives met with prominent Syrian business leaders to explore challenges and opportunities for revitalizing Syria's economy. Israeli media has reported that ceasefire negotiations with Hamas remain stalled, with slim chances of progress. The deadlock may lead to an expanded military operation in northern Gaza. Israeli leaders are blocking mediators' efforts to end the war and secure detainees' release, insisting on maintaining military presence. Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi ordered preparations to escalate operations, deploying reinforcements including armored and engineering units to Gaza. Yemenis Houthis have claimed responsibility for 2 ballistic missiles launched at Israel overnight. The announcement came after the Israeli military intercepted a missile from Yemen before it reached Israeli airspace. According to the Houthis, a hypersonic ballistic missile targeted Ben Gurion Airport, while another missile was aimed at a power station in the south. Israeli army spokesperson has warned residents of South Lebanon against traveling south. He stated that this is prohibited until further notice. He emphasized that the Israeli army does not intend to target civilians, but cautioned that returning southward poses a significant danger. He also urged residents to stay away from restricted zones to ensure their safety. Russia's Gazprom has announced it will reduce gas supplies to Europe via Ukraine to 37.2 million cubic meters on December the 31st, down from 42.4 million cubic meters the previous day. With the transit deal expiring at midnight, flows are set to cease entirely, ending Moscow's dominance over Europe's gas market. Ukraine refused to negotiate a new agreement due to the ongoing war. The halt will heavily impact Moldova and Slovakia, while Hungary will still receive gas through Turk Stream, despite preferring the Ukrainian route. This concludes our top stories for this hour. Now let's go to Henny Saif for a detailed review of the most significant stories of 2024. From major global developments to key events shaping the Middle East, we will explore the moments that left a lasting impact on this year.
Thank you, Rana, and welcome back to Qnews 2024 wrap-up, focusing on Egypt's pivotal role in regional affairs. This year, Egypt has been a crucial player, offering steadfast support to nations facing crisis, including Palestine, Lebanon and Sudan. Tonight, we'll highlight Egypt's involvement in these critical moments and its efforts to address regional challenges. Stay with us for an in-depth look at Egypt's influence and contributions in shaping the region's future. In 2024, Egypt played a pivotal role in regional and international affairs, with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi participating in key summits focused on stability and development. From discussions on Gaza and the West Bank to strengthening global ties, Egypt's diplomatic presence was felt across the Arab, African and global stages. Here's a recap of the major summits that shaped Egypt's foreign policy this year. In 2024, Egypt solidified its role as a global leader, hosting key events that highlighted its influence in regional and international affairs. From energy summits to humanitarian conferences, Egypt's commitment to dialogue, development and global cooperation was clear. Notable moments included the 7th Egypt International Energy Conference, the Egyptian-European Summit, and the 12th World Urban Forum. Here's a recap of 2024's defining events. And for further analysis on Egypt's diplomatic strategy and foreign relations and key achievements throughout 2024, we're joined from Cairo by Professor of International Relations, Dr. Hamid Faris. Welcome to Q News, Dr. Faris. Let me ask you first, how would you assess Egypt's diplomatic strategy in 2024, particularly in relations to the Gaza conflict?
Greetings to you and the audience of Qnews. I think that Egypt has succeeded to provide a unique role to work through the peace as a strategic choice through which to de-escalate the tensions of the whole region and by diversifying the foreign policy to support the brothers in Palestine. Therefore, Egypt and its diplomacy representatives of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi called strongly to have a common ground for the peace process in the Middle East through convening several meetings, on top of which the Cairo Peace Conference participated more than 31 states and internal UN organizations, and affirms the strategic vision of the Egyptian state to establish a real vision of peace in the region and supporting the Palestinian cause through the determinant of the Egyptian national security, as Cairo foresees the Palestinian cause as the main cause in the region.
Well, what impact did Egypt's participation in the 33rd Arab Summit have on regional stability, especially regarding Gaza and the West Bank?
The Arab Summit, it was the Egyptian voice that was stronger than echoing of the truth by establishing a peace in the region through the establishment of the two-state solution as the international reference convened and agreed by the Arab and Islamic Summit. And through this summit, Egypt was the main party in the Arab Ministerial Committee. It resulted from this summit that traveled throughout the world in standing before the increasing challenges affecting the Palestinian cause. And in light of the Israeli response of eradicating such a solution, despite such challenges, Cairo was the first front in defending at large only against the Palestinian cause. And without that role, the Israeli state would have liquidated the Palestinian cause. I think that we are in a very historical conjuncture through which Cairo pursued to pressure the new U.S. administration and the Israeli occupation and to stop the aggression of the Gaza Strip and delivering the humanitarian aid. Cairo that has a very compiled role as we witnessed in 2024 before the International Court of Justice and played a very important role in the UN General Assembly. More than 143 states, most of them visited Cairo, considering Cairo is the capital of the Arab resolution and pressed strongly to coordinate Arab European stances in general in order to acknowledge the Palestinian state. And I think that the upcoming period Cairo wouldn't stop to relentlessly exert all the efforts to stop the Israeli aggression in reaching terms and the withdrawal of the Israeli aggressions from the Gaza Strip.
Sir, speaking of the European stances, how has Egypt's relationship with the European Union evolved in recent years, particularly after the Egypt-EU summit in March 2024?
It is a great evidence as the EU nations in general foresee the importance of Cairo's role, not only for the Palestinian cause, but the international European nations rely at large of the Egyptian roles in order to prevent the escalation, as Cairo is choosing the strategic solution, which is the peace, through which to pursue a full ceasefire. The European Egyptian summit participated by gender line and 6 European countries reflects the importance of the Egyptian role, and there is a European Egyptian coordination as the resolution of the UN General Assembly approved by 143 states, through which 12 European states have made Cairo and called upon for an international conference through the process of the Belgian and the Spanish foreign minister to coordinate in pursue the acknowledgement of the Palestinian state, particularly that Spain was presided the European Union by saying that its premier, if the EU wouldn't acknowledge the Palestinian state, Spain would singularly and individually to take this direction, as Belgium and Ireland. That affirmed with the coordination with the Egyptian state of division, which is the establishment of the Palestinian state, as it is the main factor that would pursue in the de-escalation of the tensions in the region.
Mm-hmm. Another summit, Dr. Faris, was the BRICS summit. What would you say were the key outcomes of Egypt's involvement in the BRICS summit, and how important and significant was it, and what does it mean for Egypt's future relations with these nations?
Certainly, the year of 2024 was the most important year of the Egyptian state, considering that the Egyptian state had joined the BRICS. That was more than 23 states to join it, yet only 5 have joined, on top of which Egypt. That was reflected the strategic importance of the Egyptian state through the political part as well as the economic side, as Egypt has succeeded in creating an attractive environment of investment and changed the international view to Egypt, as Egypt's state has eradicated bureaucracy at large, attracted more of directive and indirect investment in Africa and Asia. All these outcomes, it makes us the joining of Egypt to the BRICS as a real desire of the group to optimize the importance of Egypt economically, and in the upcoming period there will be a great cooperation between Egypt and the BRICS, and I should highlight it's not an alternative strategically with the other countries, despite its strong relation with the USA, but they need to expand the strategic partnership that benefited the interests of the nations based on the one-to-one situations. And I think that Egypt moves strongly to find a real path and momentum of a real economic process and a good optimization of the BRICS to achieve this political stability in the world, and a bit to avoid the domination of one currency that would affect indirectly on the situations of the world.
Another file that Egypt has very high on its diplomatic and foreign affairs agenda is the Sudanese file. Now, how significant is Egypt's role in the Sudanese peace process, and what impact did the Sudanese political conference in July have on the situation?
There's no doubt that the Egyptian state is the more concerned nation of the Sudanese file, as it is the Egyptian national security for both countries, and there are joint borders for both sides. The instability of Sudan would lead to the disability of the region as a whole. Cairo has engaged strongly to the unity and integrity of Sudan and to have a Sudanese solution away of the foreign interventions, as considering that the foreign intervention internally would obstacle the political path. Cairo thinks that they should eradicate the armed militias and support the Sudanese army, considering that Cairo is the most dominant country to the return of Sudanese to their countries, and Egypt was hosted several brotherly Sudanese, and we remember what mentioned by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, that the Arab nations and most of them looked as guests and not refugees, as we don't have any refugees for them, and the provision for all services, therefore supporting the state of Sudan and to exit the moment in reaching a real stability, and would reflect in the whole region and the stability in the region in general.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Faris, now, what would you say were the key outcomes for the Egyptian EU investment conference that was actually held in June, and how might it impact Egypt's European economy moving forward?
This issue has a greater priority in the presidential diplomatic relations, as Cairo is finding a real partner with several European countries. And we should remember that in 2022 was the most important year through which that witnessed that a real strategic partnership, and Cairo has succeeded more investment, that whoever invested in Egypt right now is achieving the most of the optimization of investment in Egypt, and we've seen this in different corporations within Egypt, within the economic zone in Suez Canal and Al Ain al-Sukhna, and to make Egypt a very important destination in a way in finding a strategic partnership with respect to the renewable energy and the green hydrogen, as there are real crises suffered by the European continent, as the European citizen was living above the cheap Russian fuel. Therefore, by creating a real strategic relationship with the European side that make several European countries to maximize the direct investment size, as Egypt have made great steps witnessed by the International Bank or the IMF or the important institutions that affirm that Egypt is going in the right track.
Mm-hmm. So now, also in Saudi Arabia, what ways did Egypt contribute to the discussions on regional aggression during the Joint Arab-Islamic Summit in Saudi Arabia?
Certainly, the Saudi-Egyptian relations are very rooted and relations on the bilateral level, and there is a great consensus between Egypt and Saudi Arabia with respect to the Arab causes. In addition, that Egypt and Saudi Arabia are looked at that they are the moderation axis in the Arab world. Therefore, the participation of Egypt in such a summit through which the Arab Ministerial Committee that traveled throughout the rail in the UN General Assembly in fighting and compromises to de-escalate the tensions in the region, and there is a consensus between them with respect to the Palestinian cause, as Saudi Arabia is affirming the same determinant of Egypt in the necessity for establishing the two-state solution and supporting the transitional political process in Syria, and the necessity of agreement in the Sudanese file, and the necessity of the joint Arab work and action. Therefore, the participation of Egypt in this summit with more than 57 states affirms the importance of the Egyptian role as considered the main bone in the Arab region that could rely upon in the upcoming period that would serve the joint Arab interest in general.
Mm-hmm. So now, with all these conferences and events being hosted by Egypt, now how did Egypt's hosting of these key international events in 2024 reinforce its leadership on the global stage?
The political leadership of Egypt has dealt in a very excellent way, as the President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was very open and before all strategies to achieve the mutual interest between Egypt and other countries. And Cairo was very open that has a great voice in serving the Arab causes and achieves the prolonged stability that would to be in a real one. I think that Egypt has succeeded largely compared to other countries in serving the Arab causes and made it and shoulder it, the importance of such a causes, particularly if Egypt wouldn't have done this, it would be missing a real factor in achieving stability in the region. Cairo is pursuing strongly through the important events in 2024, in working at large in achieving stability in the region and not to let or spare the region in a great danger, and affirmed from the day one to it's important in the Arab world, and therefore 2024 was an evidence of its determinant in its foreign policy.
Dr. Hamid Fares, the Professor of International Relations, thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And amid global crises, Egypt has become a key player in regional stability and humanitarian efforts. From mediating ceasefires in Gaza to providing aid in Lebanon and Sudan, Egypt continues to lead efforts for peace and security. In this segment, we highlight Egypt's role in addressing the region's challenges and offering crucial support to those in need. Stay with us as we explore Egypt's impact across the Middle East with our colleague Ronald Assas.
Amid the global crises, Egypt has solidified its role as a cornerstone of regional stability and humanitarian efforts. From the conflict in Gaza to political unrest in Lebanon and Sudan, Egypt's steadfast dedication to peace and security remains clear. Egypt has played a pivotal role in mediating ceasefires between Israel and Palestine, serving as a crucial lifeline for Gaza's besieged population. Through the Rafah crossing, it has facilitated the delivery of essential goods and medical supplies, alleviating the suffering of thousands. Amid Lebanon's economic collapse and political deadlock, Egypt has been instrumental in fostering dialogue among various factions. It has also provided substantial humanitarian aid, including food, shelter, and medical care to support the Lebanese people. Egypt has actively pursued diplomatic efforts to resolve the ongoing conflict in Sudan, advocating for a peaceful resolution and a return to stability. Additionally, the country has provided significant humanitarian aid, addressing the urgent need for food, water, and also health care. Egypt's steadfast commitment to regional peace and security, alongside its active role in humanitarian efforts, makes it a beacon of hope in a region plagued by conflict and instability. Through its tireless efforts, Egypt remains pivotal in promoting dialogue, frustrating reconciliation, and alleviating suffering of those in need.
And for further analysis on Egypt's role in sending aid and leading negotiations, we're joined from Cairo by Al Ahram newspaper managing editor, Mr. Ashraf Al Ashri. Mr. Ashri, thank you for joining us here on Q News and welcome. Let me ask you first, how do you view Egypt's evolving role in Africa, particularly through its participation in the FOCAC summit in China and the D8 summit in December? Can you hear me, sir? Mr. Ashri, now, how do you view Egypt's evolving role in Africa, particularly through the participation in the FOCAC summit in China and the D8 summit in December? We seem to be having a bit of difficulties with the sound. Now, I will repeat the question, Mr. Ashri. How do you view Egypt's evolving role in Africa, particularly through the participation in the summit in China and the D8 summit in December?
Certainly, in the past years, the Egyptian state has succeeded to write a history with respect to the region strongly through and conveying and political messages by presiding the the African Union and the participation of extensive conferences and to be present in the United Nations, the UN Security Council, and participated strongly in the D8 summit with respect to the situation in Sudan, in the African continent, and played in bolstering the African stances strongly and during the past years with respect to the summits that convened in Cairo and to have an agreed presence internationally and the support entitlement with respect to starvation and desertation.
Mr. Ashi, now Egypt's role as a mediator in Gaza impacted regional stability. How did it do so, and how was it viewed by the rest of the international community?
Certainly, the Egyptian role played a great role during the past years as the main partner and the pivotal state in the region that has a great presence with respect to the disengagement of the factions between the Palestinian and Israel, and was very keen to play the pivotal role, and the most heaviest was the empowerment in the region and by convened several negotiations and to find a solution to the crisis and by organizing and coordinating the internal stances by the request of delivering the humanitarian aids at Cairo was very keen to be the first country to play a great role to make the Palestinian causes vital, and there is no solution but the two-state solutions. And with respect to the last drones, and there is a great proposal of the Egypt of 3 phases, and the Egyptian role is that has a great and international support in this time in light of the Israeli aggressions that's taking place in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you've mentioned, sir, Egypt has been there from day one in October 2023 when the conflict in Gaza has erupted. Now, in what ways and how much was Egypt's humanitarian assistance to Gaza really help alleviate the crisis?
Since the 7th of October, Egypt was very strongly present by convening the peace summit that held in Cairo, and was the agent of the international stances, particularly in the European meetings and the UN meetings. And following that, that established a determined Egyptian force to hold the several principles of Egypt in supporting the Palestinian people, and to have a great consensus of the Aqaba meetings, along with the main partners in of the American side. And I think that Cairo is to continue up till this moment in delivering the aids as the biggest state of the world that helped in delivering more than 80% of the aids into Palestine. That made the UN Secretary General had several visits in Rafah by affirming and supporting the Egyptian role in the assistance of the Palestinian people, and as well as used the airplanes in delivering the assistance and practiced a great pressure upon Israel in delivering the aids. So I consider that the Egyptian role is still strong up till now concerning delivering the humanitarian aids.
Another regional conflict is the conflict taking place in Lebanon. Can you elaborate on Egypt's diplomatic efforts in Lebanon during its political crisis?
I think that internationally and in the Arab world is following what happened in September by the entering and the Israeli operations within the southern Lebanese, and by the messages sent to the Lebanese partners by the Foreign Minister Badr al-Ati, and Egypt made a great assistance of delivering the humanitarian and the food aids in Lebanon, as well as the help in the provision of the treatment of the injured. And Cairo that had made several phone calls with the United Nations partners and the international partners, and the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had called upon the very necessity of the achieving and executing the resolution 1701 and made a great assistance in the past months. And I think with the cooperation with Egypt and the European community that played a very strong and dominant role in reaching the trust that succeeded. And this effort continued by delivering the humanitarian aids and played a great role of the provision of the international guarantee in executing the 1701 resolution as the main pillar in pursuing the ceasefire. And I think in the past years that the D8 summit, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi have made with Miqati in pursuit to the maintain the stability in the southern in Lebanon, and Egypt is present strongly and being in the heart of that scene up till now.
Mm-hmm. Well, other than the humanitarian support that Egypt has sent to Lebanon, what other steps has Egypt taken to support Lebanon's recovery amid its economic collapse?
All effort was centered to stop the Israeli aggression. Also, there are the great steps of Egypt by assigning the diplomatic mission to have a set of main principles to force Israel of the ceasefire and to commit of the principles of 1701 resolution and the guarantee of cooperation with the main partners in supervising this ceasefire within 60 days and to have a consensus by the dissemination of the Lebanese army in the Mekhi. And among of these areas to be evacuated from Hezbollah, and I think that Egypt supported the Egyptian state and to block the way before Israel and to have the sponsored international partner responsibility by executing the resolution of the UN Security Council 1701 and entering to be effective and to guarantee the Israeli commitment by the Egyptian role with the meetings of the League of Arab States to practice pressure upon Israel and they cannot connect with the Israeli practices and to have an accurate execution by entering the Lebanese army, and that represent an international group of pressure that succeeded by the ceasefire, and Egypt is very present in they offer the humanitarian aid and supporting the Lebanese army to have full control of the southern Lebanese in light of the American guarantees along with the Arab partners in the past weeks.
Mr. Ashraf Al-Ashri, the Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. In 2020, it's been a pivotal year for Egypt, strengthening its role as a bridge between developed and emerging economies. Key milestones include Egypt's participation in the G20, COP, and D8, showcasing its growing influence in global forums. With significant strides in trade, renewable energy, and infrastructure development, Egypt continues to advance its economic and diplomatic agenda on the world stage.
"2024 has been a pivotal year for Egypt, solidifying its role as a vital bridge between developed and emerging economies. The country has played a central role in key international forums such as the G20, BRICS, COP, and D8, advancing its economic and diplomatic agenda. Although not a permanent member of the G20, Egypt was invited in several summits due to its regional importance. In November, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi attended the G20 summit in Brazil, marking Egypt's fourth participation. This milestone coincided with robust economic growth, with trade between Egypt and G20 countries reaching $61 billion from January to September, up to $55.6 billion in 2023. Exports accounted for $14.4 billion, while imports stood at $46.6 billion. Building on the momentum from hosting COP27 in 2022, Egypt has placed significant emphasis on renewable energy. In February 2024 alone, agreements worth over $40 billion were signed for green hydrogen and renewable energy projects, further cementing Egypt's position as a regional clean energy hub. At COP29 in Baku in November, Egypt reaffirmed its commitment to climate justice, urging developed nations to fulfill financial pledges to support vulnerable countries. Another key milestone was Egypt's official entry to BRICS at the start of 2024, followed by its debut summit participation in Kazan, Russia in October. Trade between Egypt and BRICS countries exceeded $30 billion in the first 8 months of 2024, reflecting a 15% year-on-year increase. Membership also grants Egypt access to the new development bank, offering alternative financing for critical infrastructure projects. In December, Egypt hosted the 11th D8 summit in the new administrative capital. President el-Sisi announced Egypt's intention to ratify the D8 preferential trade agreement, which aims to lower tariffs and boost trade among member states. This aligns with Egypt's broader strategy to expand trade partnerships and attract foreign investment.
And to shed more light on Egypt's role in global economic forums, its renewable energy initiatives and trade expansion with emerging economies, we're joined from Cairo by the economic affairs writer, Mr. Mohammed Izzeddin. Welcome to Q News, Mr. Izzeddin. Firstly, how has Egypt's participation in the G20 and BRICS impacted its global standing and economic growth?
I consider that to send an invitation to Egypt, and due to the political way and the respect attained by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Therefore, Egypt is the main pillar of the regional economy and the Middle East area economy. Egypt has a great deals with the G20 and several of important agreements, whether in the economic level or the financing or this level of several projects that we witness weekly in Egypt. There is a great movement by the very advanced economics to deal and enlarge with the Egyptian economy, as the Egyptian export made a great achievement in 2024 and entered a new market that never been present before. Also, there's a great concern with the project of energy project, US billions as a result of the green hydrogen project, i.e. that Egypt is very keen to continue the sustainable development and to the preservation of environment, which are the conditions demanded by the advanced economics, in particular in Europe and America. Furthermore, Egypt is very keen to follow the clean energy methods. There is a strategy of energy laid down in Egypt upon President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took office, and to be in the front line of producing the clean energy and renewable energy. Also, there are several agreements with the European Union and a strategic partnership, and to gain in a very facilitated finance of several development projects. As Egypt is targeting to increase the role of the private sector in several projects and to participate in development in sustainable way, and there is a great benefit of the SMEs project through the good relations with the group at large or bilaterally that enable the Egyptian economy in attracting technology in addition to the foreign investment that help to include Egypt as the great destination of increasing the foreign investment in light of the economic legislations and the facilitations attained by the investment domestically or internationally. There is also a great cooperation in development project and boosting project in the health sector and education.
Yes. Mr. Mohammed Izzeddin, the economic affairs writer and expert, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News, sir. And as we conclude our 2024 wrap-up on Egypt's pivotal role in shaping regional and global affairs, it's clear that the country has solidified its position as a key player in fostering dialogue, development and humanitarian efforts. From energy summits to peace initiatives, Egypt's leadership continues to have a profound impact. This wraps up the Egyptian review for 2024, but please don't forget to follow us on follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more here on Q News.